Hey, this is Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP, Executive Editor at Black Enterprise. Welcome to another great session of our great conference, Black Men Excel. And this is going to be really, really powerful. We have none other than Shannon Brown, Senior VP, President of Eastern Division, U.S. Operations, and Chief Diversity Officer at FedEx Express, and Christopher Womack, President, External Affairs at Southern Company. And we're going to be talking about a conversation that's really critical to this platform, this theme of excellence and leadership, in particular as we seek a higher level representation of Black men in corporate America. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this year at Black Men Excel.
Thanks, Alfred. It's always good to be with you.
So let's start with the obvious and at the top. We have been on a decades-long journey to diversify not only corporate America, but obviously to gain more positions in the senior leadership ranks. Both of you have what used to be considered a ladder of corporate America has become a lot more complex as you navigate your careers to get to your own goals and destinations personally, while meeting the demands and the needs of shareholders and employees and the company's mission for its customers. Each of you, and I'll start with you, Chris, talk about what you were thinking at the beginning of your journey and how that's different from where you ended up in terms of reaching these levels of corporate America.
Alfred, again, let me say thanks for the opportunity to have this conversation. And first thing I'd say, it's been much longer than a decade. I mean, I've been with our company now some 30 plus years, and diversity has been a conversation that I've heard for and been a part of for, I know, the 30 years that I've been around. So it has been an ongoing conversation I know that have had in our company, and I've heard it throughout the entire business community. And so during my tenure, I have seen ebbs and flows, fits and starts, and a lot of talk. And yeah, I mean, there's been some progress in some areas, but I think we're at that point now where we're looking for a lot more. We're looking forward to rid ourselves of any excuses that prevent people of color from having the opportunity to achieve and be all they can be. And so I think, and I know post the killing of George Floyd and the attention that has been given to racial injustice, it has really put the spotlight on not only what happens externally in terms of our communities and our relationship with the police as Black men, but has also put the spotlight on what happens inside of companies and inside of the business community. One of the things that I have said, as we have had a lot of very difficult, very uncomfortable conversations, is that the business community must take a strong leadership role in this issue of racial injustice and creating equality in our workplace and being good stakeholders with every part of our business. And that also means our engagement and our responsibility to help our communities also be better. And so one of the things that I kind of have been challenging our company and challenging myself and a lot of others is that, one, we can't be silent. The days of being silent have far passed us by. I mean, I've had white friends who've said, I'm afraid to speak out because I don't want to say the wrong thing. That is completely unacceptable today to me. And so we all must engage in this very difficult conversation if we're going to fully take advantage of this opportunity, which I think we're at a wonderful opportunity, at a wonderful inflection point to really finally make some systemic change inside of our businesses, inside of our communities, and inside of our country. But we must take full advantage of this opportunity.
You know, Shannon, I want you to pick up on that. An executive from JP Morgan Chase I interviewed earlier this year made the point that what's reflected on the streets, whether you talk about police misconduct or the other issues that we as Black men face out in the world, won't change if there's not change within institutions that determine larger societal outcomes, and large corporations are an example of that. You're at FedEx, like Chris, you guys have been in the game in a long time. You've seen diversity come and go. You've seen it in your own organizations, in your own career. what are your observations in terms of what both Black men in corporate America who are at senior levels are seeing now, such as yourself, but also what Black men who are maybe in mid-career or early career have a right to expect in terms of what they can aspire to, given this tipping point that Chris just referred to?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to join you and Mr. Womack to have a conversation about this topic. At FedEx, I've been here now 42 years, and I started as a package handler. And when I walked in the door, first thing they said, well, what do you want to be? I said, oh, hell, I want to be the CEO of the place. And the first thing they told me, they said, well, that job is already filled. What about a package handler job? I said, okay, well, that's all you have. I take it. And so the last 40 years, I've continued to try to work to get to that position. What I like to do, because I was one of the first members of our diversity task force when we really looked at the book Workforce 2000 that was written talking about the brown and the more women that are going to be in the workplace. And so we said, look, we need to put a team together to try to figure out to ensure FedEx is ready for more women and people of color in the workplace. And so I've been on that team since 1992. And I've been a chief diversity officer of this organization since 2000. And what I tell all people, especially within my organization, is we start out with the succession planning process, because that's really going to tell you what things are going to look like 5 years from now. You can use a 9-block or whatever organizations use to see, okay, who are we mentoring? Who are we giving exposure to? Who are we developing, providing additional training and recognition to? Well, those are the individuals going to run the company. So that's the first place that I start with every organization. Okay, that would tell me what you're doing around diversity, because if it's not in the succession planning process, then it's not going to happen. Because if you're investing your money with a talent that you think those individuals are going to be successful and continue to run the organization. And so that's where I start, because that give you an idea of what the team members, down throughout the organization are working on. And then you can start having a conversation with those individuals. Why does it look like X? And then how do you change X? And why, you look like that? Because, we are creatures of habit. We like being around people that we're comfortable with. We like being around people that look like us and talk like us. And when you look at anything, it is what, I want to do what's convenient for me. That makes it easier for me and how I get through the world. And I'm not going to change unless probably it's a requirement, because what convenience or preference or requirement. And so if I'm not, if not a convenience or preference, then you got to make it a requirement. And a requirement, I think, just like Mr. Womack said, it is going to require me adjusting, the things that I do in order to change. And so when you look at those things, and when you look at that, it's just not going to happen through a natural process unless you make diversity a strategy, just like you make acquisition of customers or acquisition of other companies or whatever. You have to make diversity a strategy, just like you do everything else. It's part of the business, how you grow the business, how you acquire customers in diverse communities, and so forth. And then, I would say African Americans need to take more of a role of what are you doing within your organizations to help move people along. Case example, that, if I start at the frontline employees, you take my employees in our hub operation. And so, I instituted what we call a LIFE program. The LIFE program allows those individuals without a college degree to attend the University of Memphis free of charge online. Because now I had to make a change for them in order to get them prepared in order to move throughout the organizations.
So we're talking about the pipeline that has to be filled to even get the conversation.
Yeah, you have to build a pipeline. If it's not in the pipeline, it's not going to come out on the other end. Or you're dealing with the exhaust and not the engine. And so that program is, number one, is I have to get people in a position and prepared to do some things. And I tell you another thing, the biggest issue I'd have had with managers they were afraid to take on more responsibility.
Mm.
Because of that next level, they were intimidated by it. And so I had to help them understand that, most people learn the job on the job. That's how we all, just like I learned to walk mile than somebody else. So most people learn the job on the job, and convincing them that they can do it. And once you do that, then they figure out that they're just like anyone else in the organization, that they can do it. So what I try to figure out, okay, what can I do within the organization so I can ensure that the people are in the pipeline? And if they're in the pipeline, therefore, when a manager needs an individual, that I have diverse candidates in the pipeline, and to try to make it as a natural process as I possibly can make it.
So Shannon, you said that when you came in the door, you were thinking CEO, and again, Chris, Shannon, you just jump in whenever you feel like you have something to say. But the possibilities for corporate leadership back in the day, when you talk about the top three or four rungs of the ladder, was pretty much CEO, president, CFO, COO, and then everybody else. So it was a very narrow tip of the mountain, if you will, peak of the mountain in the hierarchy. Now you have a lot more possible areas of chief level leadership at the top of corporations: chief diversity, chief supply chain, chief information, chief technology. Talk about what that might mean, especially for those listening and watching us now, who are trying to plan a career path with more possibilities at the top of corporate America than may have existed 20 or 25 or 30 years ago.
Well, the way to go, I tell people the way to get to the top now is not always a straight line. You may have to zigzag, you may have to go up a little bit, you may have to take down a little bit and move over, because the world's changing, and the world's changing a lot faster now than when I started. And you have to ensure that you can be, have multiple disciplines that you can work in, because once you're in a manager's job, leadership is leadership. You just may be doing a certain thing within the organization. But when you're a leader, you're just leading people. I've taken on many different roles in leadership, from human resources, which, I had no clue about when I got in. And my boss told me, "Well, how did you learn how to do that?" Well, he said, "Well," I said, I figured it out." He said, "Well, you go figure that out too." And so, and once I did, then okay, that's fairly easy. And so the people piece of it, and learning how to understand and attack problems and manage strategies, really, that's the key to it. And not set yourself up where you're in a linear standpoint and thinking that that's the only discipline. If you're in marketing, well, you just have to, that's the only place. Well, move over to operations, or move into IT, or move into some other roles of organization, because you have to go where the work is.
Yeah, but you make it sound so easy, man. You let people know the kind of hard work you had to put in. To learn HR, to learn all those different skill sets. You have to learn the business, and that's what you've done. It didn't come easy. You had to put the hours in, you had to put the work in, to achieve what you have accomplished. And you're just not going to be anointed with, this is what you're going to do and this is what you're going to be. You got to put the work in, you got to put the effort in, and that's what you've done.
Yeah, but you also have to force people to go into places that they're not comfortable with.
Right.
And you take human resources. The way I learned human resources was through consultants. I had one consultant come in, I listened. Then the next one came in, I had more information after talking to the other one. By the time I got to the 15 consultants, I thought I was a pretty good diversity expert. Yeah. And so now, so my boss said, "Well, how did you learn that?" Well, I call it good old housing project training, where I was raised up, and you just have to figure things out. Everything is not going to be laid out that, you can just, some of these things you just have to try to figure it out and do it a different way. But I always went to it with the attitude, I will be successful in the end.
No question.
Chris, picking up on that, and you made a great point about, to get to chief level, I'm using chief as broadly to describe the senior levels of corporate America, senior level leadership. It's not enough to learn your job or to learn your department. You have to learn the business, even those parts of the business that may not be something you're personally interested in, from a vocational employment or occupational standpoint. But you're talking about being able to understand how all the parts work, so that when you're at this top of a large organization, you can be a high impact leader, because that's what everybody's expected to be once you get to that level. Talk about what you leaned into in response to Shannon, that you got to learn this organization, not just be good at your job.
No, you do. I mean, and you can't take that for granted. It's very important, I think, from internal credibility for you to understand the business and be able to engage in conversations with your colleagues on a regular basis and demonstrate that you understand the business. The other thing is, I mean, when I started, I mean, I wasn't like Shannon. I didn't say I wanted to be president. I didn't think about that, and I've never thought about my next job. I've always said, and it has worked for me, that if I do a good job with the job I have, if I work pretty well with the people that I'm tasked to work with, both to my left, to my right, above me and below me, if I do that, if I do a good job, I'll get another opportunity, and that's what I have been afforded. But I do think, and like Shannon, I mean, I was given the responsibility to be the chief human resource officer, chief people officer at Southern Company. I didn't know much about HR. I had to do the same thing. I had to figure it out, and I learned it. I left human resources, and then went to run power plants. So I went from a people organization to running a very strict technical operation and trying to lead people who are all engineers. But those are the challenges I think you must kind of challenge yourself to do in order to be successful, to continue to grow inside of the organization, to be successful and achieve more senior level responsibilities. And so I'm glad to have those opportunities. One of the things that I want to make sure we do now is that we afford more people of color similar kinds of opportunities and take risk on different people. And whether it's through mentorship, whether it's through sponsorship, whether it's through our development programs, but making sure we have the structure in place, building out of our succession planning process where we identifying the talent, we understand what people are good at and what developmental opportunities they need, and that we're providing them with those tools and strategies to improve, to learn the business, to become better leaders, to become better entrepreneurs, to become better marketers, whatever skill set they need to improve, making sure we have the processes and structures and programs and the commitment on the part of leadership to make sure they are given those kind of opportunities.
You know, a lot of the challenges that face everyone, but we're focusing on Black men in particular, as we set our goals and ambitions in corporate America and in industry in general, is we don't know what there looks like. We know we're trying to go there to this place, but we don't know what it looks like. You know, so, and Shannon, you touched on this a second ago. Do a deeper dive into what, and both of you can jump in on this, what a succession planning process looks like. You know, how does one understand how that works so they can be strategic about how they position themselves to be recognized for advancement, to be recognized as a talent, to recognize an opportunity that may be in an area of the company that's different from where they are now, but they wouldn't think of it unless they kind of understood the workings of the company and what's important to the company. And the succession planning is tied to what are the priorities of our corporation, what are the priorities of the customers we serve, and then where do we need to align our talents around that. So do a deeper dive into what a serious corporate succession plan looks like and how someone should, you know, prepare to make the most of that knowledge.
Well, a lot of times I tell people within the organization, because they can really get on the track of from a hierarchical standpoint of, you know, a discipline, is, you know, how does the organization make money today, and how does the organization make money going into the future? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We create a business, acquire customers, purchase your goods, and at the end of the day, hopefully you make a good profit on it. And then how do you continue to do that and move the organization along where society is going or where the market is going? And what are you doing to impact that? Because really, that's really what it's all about. What kind of impact are you having to the organization to help drive profitability? Because at the end of the day, that's really what we're talking about. And how are you engaging or setting yourself aside and apart from the rest of them? And I always use, my dining room in my house, a room that is not used that much.
But it's got a pretty table, doesn't it?
It's a beautiful table. And I said, you can walk in and take a piece of my china. I wouldn't miss it until Thanksgiving.
Wouldn't miss it a bit.
Because I'm not going to use it until then.
Right.
You can be an employee, the same thing. If I just don't see you and you're not expressing yourself or, moving along with an organization and I don't see you, then with everything else I got, I can miss you. I always use what I call a TIE organization: talent, image, and exposure. Are you exposing yourself to the people that's going to make the decision? That's really what it comes back. Back to what Chris said, you be the smartest guy in the world, but if I don't know that, you're just the smartest guy in the world. And you're going to stay the smartest guy in the world in that position if I don't get a chance to see what you can contribute to the organization. You can have a bad reputation, but if you're exposed to the people making the decision, you got a better chance than the smartest guy in the world of getting that position. And my uncle told me early on in my career, and I can remember when I went to a meeting and I told him, I said, man, that guy just did a whole hell of a lot of talking. He talked all the time. But my uncle told me, he said, but I tell you what, they remember him, they didn't remember you. So then I started talking so they can remember me. And so you have to let people know that you're in the room, that let people know that you are one of the smartest guys in the room and what you can contribute. And you can be multi-disciplined, that you cannot just let everybody put you in a pigeonhole and say, okay, you just X. Well, you need to make sure that you, back to what Chris said, that you can work in any place in the business and drive profitability, because that's really what organizations are looking for.
Chris, I want you to jump in, but I'm reminded of something that Ken Chenault told us, me, and Derek Dingle at Black Enterprise on a number of occasions in conversations, that one of the ways to stand out is not to run away from the problems, but to run toward the problem and be one of the key people to help to solve it. And that you're always going to be remembered for that. And, often we try to shy away from the difficulties, but, it's a cliche, but it's true. The crisis is an opportunity for you to stand out in the way that Shannon just talked about.
Well, Chris, let me just jump in this and I get out of your way. But that's been the key to my whole the success in my career. I always went, nobody else wanted to go. Number one, didn't have to interview for the job, because I was the only nut job that probably wanted to take. So it made it real easy. Two, that you solve the problem, because any problem dealing with people, if you know how to deal with people, you can work through it. Then you look like you're a success, but all you did was when you went in there and just put some processes in place, took care of people and things that worked out, and your name floated up to the top. So you're absolutely right.
Chris.
No, but the other part of that is, I think as we deal with a lot of issues we're dealing with now culturally, and whether we call it systemic racism, systemic biases, is those managers of people of color or Black men also have to make sure that they're providing them exposure, giving them good mentorship, giving them good leadership, being a good manager for them. And we've seen histories of in the past where that has not happened. And so one of the challenges I think all of our organizations have to make sure is that many first line supervisors a lot of times got jobs because they were very good technical experts. They were very good engineers. They were very good at some technical competency, but may not have been the best leader. But in order to promote them, they were giving leadership and managerial roles, but they weren't necessarily good managers. And so one of the things I know that we're having to confront and make sure we hold our managers accountable is being good leaders. And so, and don't be hesitant to give a brother feedback, whether he's doing good or not doing good, but making sure you're giving him feedback, you're giving him the exposure, you're helping him develop his talent, all the things that Shannon talked about. Yes, the individual has an ultimate responsibility for his career, but he also must have good support from the organization. And so one of the things that I try to pay a lot of attention to is making sure that the organization is not organically rejecting certain people simply because of the color of their skin or whatever, or for other reasons. And so as we deal with these issues internally of racial injustice and biases, is making sure that the organization is being completely fair to every brother in the organization. If he's not doing well, let him know. If he continues not to do well, let him go. At the same time, brothers that are doing well, give them support their talent development, support their image, support their exposure, and continue to give them opportunities to grow and develop and pursue other paths inside the organization.
It makes total sense. Makes total sense. So gentlemen, we're coming down the home stretch. I do want you to give a tip of the nod to the topic of, and Chris, you just said mentorship, but of sponsorship. I think that's what you're kind of talking about, that both of you have said that as Black men, as we rise through the organization, we need to recognize that there are people in other rooms that will say good things about us when we're not in the room to help us to get access to opportunities. And at the same time, we, as we rise through these organizations, have to like Shannon said, you got to know where the talent is. And then when you're in position to say, listen, I know the person that can do this, and I'm going to put in a good word for them and recommend them, that sponsorship is critical to our ability to build this kind of advancement in corporate America and in industry in general. So just give a nod to the importance of understanding the power of sponsorship, both for your own career and what you can do to fill the pipeline behind you.
One of the things that, and I'll say this, and I'm sure the responsibility that we have as successful executives in our organization is not just go out and buy nice dining room tables. Mm-hmm. We like them and we enjoy them on Thanksgiving and for Christmas dinners. But we also have an inherent responsibility to make sure that we are growing, we're developing, we're building a bench of other brothers who can come behind us. And so as we have to get the work done that we're responsible for in our organization, we have a much bigger responsibility to the bigger company to make sure that diverse talent, African-American brothers and other people of color, other represented minorities, that we're also building that bench as well, and that we're setting a sign and example, because we don't want to be the only one. We want to have a lot more brothers sitting around Shannon's dining room table, celebrating and having a good meal and saying, yeah, I mean, we've seen their growth, we've seen their development, we're doing the hiring, we're doing the development, we're dealing with every aspect of that supply chain to make sure that we keep growing diverse talent inside of our organizations. And I just think that's a major responsibility that we have as senior executive leaders in our organization.
Shannon, before you jump in, I'm reminded of something that I share with a young executive who was the first Black in his position. It was very proud, it was great. But I told him, being the first Black is not an achievement, it's an assignment. That this is an assignment for you to do something, not just to be happy you arrived and you're in the room. Right. But Shannon, you want to add to what Chris just shared?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always use the T-shirt theory, that I can put a T-shirt on and say Shannon Brown is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and walk around, you all said he's the most arrogant piece of you-know-what that I've ever seen. Chris can put the same T-shirt on, so Shannon Brown is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You all say, whoa, Chris said it, Shannon must be great. Yeah. So that's the power of sponsorship. That I didn't say it, Chris said I was good. And Chris, being in authority in a position within the organization, say I'm good. Then other people start to say, okay, well, Shannon must be good. I don't have a damn clue whether Chris is telling the truth or not. But as long as Chris said it and Shannon didn't say it, then it's okay.
No question.
And the second thing is, you have to make sure that you have people in the position of special committees and special projects and doing presentations and those sort of things, so people can see them outside of their normal position. And so I'm always making sure that those are diverse individuals when those assignments come up, or we establish a committee to work on something special or a new product or new service or something. I make sure that, wait a minute, now we need to put this person on there. They've done a good job. So people can see them outside of their roles, and they can see them in that leadership role and see them in that next promotion position that they've had an opportunity to prove themselves. And so, and that's, my responsibility to ensure that that happens.
So listen, while we're about to close out, but I definitely want you guys to, I could talk to you for 90 minutes, 3 hours, because your collective experience getting to where you are is one of the reasons why we were so pleased and thankful that you were able to even do this session. But if you were going to leave, and I'll start with Chris and end with Shannon, 2 critical takeaways for someone who is, early stage career in corporate America, a lot of ambition, a lot of talent, and maybe they're like Shannon. They're where they are now, but their goal is to make it to a C-suite position in corporate America. What are 1 or 2 things, Chris, that you would advise them to really be thinking about to prepare them for that journey and increase the odds that they'll get there?
My baseline always is very simple. Do a good job with the job you have. I mean, for me, that's the entry point. You can look to the C-suite and say you want to be there, but if you drop the ball, if you don't perform in the job that you have, your chance of making it to the C-suite becomes very, very difficult. So my first thing to everybody is do a good job with the job you have. The other thing is learn the business, learn the total business, understand the business, understand how the business makes money. I mean, understand what the business has been structured to do, and be a good student of that business. I think when you do that and you demonstrate that to other people inside the organization, it demonstrates your kind of organizational curiosity, but also your organizational knowledge. And so as you have demonstrated that you can do good work, that you can get along with people, that you understand the business, I think that sets you up for additional opportunities throughout your career. And as you continue to be successful, the opportunities and the responsibilities will only get greater as you advance.
Excellent. Shannon.
Well, I take Chris's example just even further. First of all, you need to tell people what you want, so nobody have to read your mind. If you want to be the CEO, make sure you tell them that you want to be the CEO, and then you tell them as often as you can that you want to be the CEO. Second thing is, your manager holds you accountable to perform whatever tasks or responsibilities that you have in that organization. And your manager's role is to make sure he or she provide development opportunities for you to help you get where you want to go. And don't let them off the hook. And you tell them that, because I've always tell all my managers, I want to be X, and your job is help me to get there. Now you tell me what I need to do so you can help me get there. So you make sure you don't let your manager off the hook. Because a lot of times we sit there and wait on the manager to say, well, what do you want to do? And that's not going to happen. Not to say they don't want to do it. It is, well, again, is it convenient for them to do that? Is a preference, or is it a requirement? And it's your job to make it a requirement for them to do that.
Wow, that's great. That's great. That's great. So I want to close out with 1 more question to both of you. Give a word to I don't want to call it the price. Well, maybe the name of another session, the cost to be the boss. This is not easy work. I mean, a lot of times people have this image of the corner office and the access to the jet, and help our audience to understand that this is high level, high pressure work, that it's good, looks good. Obviously you have a lot of power, you have a lot of influence, you have a lot of income, stock options. There's a glamorization, if you will, of the CEO position that I think often the average person, whether in corporate America, outside of corporate America, doesn't necessarily appreciate what you're signing up for when you decide you want to be the chief diversity officer, the chief administrative officer, the president of a division. So just give a little nod again to understand what you're signing up for. It's rewarding, but it's not easy, especially for Black men.
Well, you have to make it look easy.
Okay.
And you have to make it look easy because you don't want to intimidate the people who are coming up behind you. Because if you make it look difficult, then you scare them off and they say, well, okay, I don't want no part of that. Because it's too difficult and I don't want to do that. So you have to make the job look easy. And you have to recognize the higher you go, the more really humble that you have to be, because you lose control of what happens 3 or 4 levels below you. And so the only way you can be successful with that, you got to have a good team around and use a whole hell of a lot of what I call personal power. because I tell people all the time that somebody's doing something to get me fired right now. I just don't know who it is. I don't know who that person is. If I did, I'd go out and solve it. And so now I have to depend on my team to take care of those things, to understand those things, and make sure they elevate information up to me so I can address it as quickly as I can. But the higher you go, the more you have to depend on people that work with you, and especially the people that are close to you. And so you have to trust in them that they're going to elevate information up to you quickly so you can solve those things. And you have to use the brain power of everybody on the team, because that's all you're doing at the top is you just quarterbacking this thing. I mean, you're so far away from what's going on, you don't know. Like I said, frontline people in this company, they don't give a damn about Shannon Brown or who I am. They don't even know who I am or what am I supposed to do. But they do know their frontline manager. They do know their frontline manager, maybe that manager's boss. But after that, that's where the power has to be. And so you push the power where the power needs to be and move the organization. Don't get caught up in your ego and those sort of things, because at this level, it doesn't matter. You know, they can put me out tomorrow and the place is still going to run. We're going to fly airplanes and move boxes and deliver packages to customers. If I'm gone tomorrow, they're not going to miss me probably for about 15 minutes. And the next person is going to step right in and take over.
Chris,
So just keep it simple.
No, a couple of things I would add. I mean, I think Shannon gets it right in terms of the ease in which you carry out the responsibility. The other part of it is the pleasantries and the enjoyment you get from it and the fun you have with the role. And I think people see that in you, and I think that's a responsibility. I think it's a good trait to have in these kind of roles, is that we're not moody. We're always happy. It could have been a tough night. It could have been, I mean, we could be in the midst of a crisis, but it's like, man, Shannon looks like he's always having fun. Chris looks like he's always enjoying himself. And I think that's very, very important. The other thing is that one of the things I do is any other Black employee inside this company, no matter what level they are, they say they want to meet with me, and guess what? I'm going to meet with them. And now that takes a lot of time. It takes up a lot of time. But that's what I know I must do. I must have those meetings. Anybody wants to call me, anybody want to meet with me, my door is wide open and I will fit that into my schedule. It's not going to take me 6 weeks to do that. I'm going to do that as quick as I possibly can. But I think that comes along with the responsibility that we have with the jobs we have, but also the responsibility of being an African-American, being a brother in these roles. That's kind of what we must do. I mean, there are a lot of buckets we have to carry, and we can never complain about them. We just keep toting them. We just keep carrying them, and we keep picking more up. I think that's the responsibility, the opportunity we have been afforded, and we must cherish and enjoy these opportunities.
Gentlemen, that's the perfect way to end this conversation. You would like to keep going. I'm a geek about excellence and leadership from us brothers, so I'm like indulging myself. But you guys have put a perfect period on this conversation of excellence and leadership for those who aspire to the C-suite in corporate America. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Shannon.